Colleagues, today we are converged here as the MEC, accompanied of course by the head of department, will be delivering on the media briefing, deliberating on what is going to happen from today going forward on issues pertaining to education, number one. Number two, we are also having an education in Daba here. The MEC will also be leading some of the sessions and or plenaries, giving his view on issues and reflecting on the policy transformation and evolution of the department. That is meant to ensure that we transform the education as required. Also, some of the issues that the MEC will be reflecting on are part of what is contained in his budget speech that was delivered earlier. So he'll be giving an update, what has been done, what has not been done. Colleagues, please forgive me. I am from an old school. We normally start an event with a prayer at home. So I'll ask Mr. Njoli to open for us with a prayer. Thank you very much. Mr. Njoli, over to you. Thank you very much, Sibali. That is Mr. Njoli from Events. Colleagues, the program is as follows. I've done opening and I am officially welcoming you in this media briefing of the MEC. Now, we'll ask the MEC to please ascend to the podium to make his presentation. After that, we'll have questions and answers, and then from there, we'll have a closure. Over to you, MEC. Thank you very much.
Let me first greet you, Program Director, Mr. Mtima, acting as she, members of the media houses invited here, the departmental officials, the district director of the Crisani East, and almost everybody that has been invited into this important gathering. We have taken a decision as a collective of the sector in the province to create a culture of accountability and a culture of interaction with the people of the province on a wide range of issues in education. And we have committed ourselves that we will have to take that route almost each and every quarter of the academic year so that we can make proper reflections and proper lessons and strategic way forward on some of those matters that continue to draw the attention of the people of the province in the sector. As a department, we have taken that decision to convene this briefing for the purpose of accountability, as I've said, to the people of the province on the work we have done thus far. This briefing is also meant to give clarity and an update on many issues that affect the schooling system in the province. As expected by the populace of this province, we plan the 2021 academic year as well, with a clear aim in our minds to holistically develop the learners in our province by innovative by innovating the pedagogy of education during the COVID-19 pandemic. As expected, this pandemic has affected our normal operations and continue to highlight deeply the entrenched inequalities in our society between the haves and the have-nots. This is a glaring reality and a necessity that, as the leadership of the sector, we are duty-bound to take decisions that are meant to address the inequalities in our different communities, using the schools as catalysts. The challenge that is currently faced by the Department of Education in the province is on how to ensure that for the academic year 2021, the following years, the pass rate is increased, and not only the grade 12, but the entire education system. The education sector lost a lot of teaching and learning time during the national lockdown period, the adjusted school calendar, and the principle of rotation poses a challenge of loss of time. In trying to regain the lost ground, various strategies has to be put in place to ensure teaching and learning to take place amidst the challenges of the pandemic. These strategies include the following: an alternating timetable model in our schools to implement and observe health and safety protocols to protect our teachers and staff, revision of the school calendar to mitigate the impact of the lost time for the teaching and learning time. DBE tabled a multi-year recovery strategy to ensure that no further time for teaching and learning is lost in abundance in the country. The recovery plan will occur over a 3-year period, overlapping from the 2021 to 2023. This will gradually recover learning losses while building on the foundational content required for the next grade. As a province, we are expected to emulate this recovery plan based on our own individual challenges as different provinces. The approach, the adjustment of the curriculum, the trimming of for those parts are non-core, and the recovery plan on the annual teaching plans is also for the grade as follows: grade R to grade 12. And the focus mainly is on the core and the fundamental content, the knowledge, skills, and attitudes, and the values required in each grade, and the subject to endure the deep learning and the content mastering as opposed to superficial learning. Furthermore, the use of the digital platforms and enhanced integration of the ICT in the academic year will be prioritized by the department in the context of the Eastern Cape. The Eastern Cape Department of Education will continue with the concept which we introduced in 2020, academic year, anywhere, anytime, any learning approach, capitalizing on the vast digital resources and infrastructure already in place and interventions aimed at providing increased teaching and learning opportunities. The key pillars in driving implementation of this improved plan are the following. 1, the teacher support, learner support, resourcing of schools and the entire department, a broad communication strategy, a monitoring and evaluation of the work that we consistently do, and also introduce digital solutions to some of the systemic and structural problems that we have, both in the learning environment and also in the administrative environment that we are bound to resolve. In order to improve the performance and regaining the time lost, we will provide support in both GETC band, and as well EFT phase, with an aim to mitigate the negative effects posed by the COVID-19. During the 2020 academic year, the department rolled out ICT to support the schools with great success and some challenges. One of those challenges was the issue of the poor connectivity in some of the schools in the province. This poses a high risk to the department on effective use of the devices for the intended purpose, providing quality teaching and learning in order to achieve the quality results that we ought to get. This poor connectivity created a digital divide between the rich and the poor in the province. In order to bridge this gap between the urban and rural schools, and more importantly, mitigate the effects of the pandemic, as the department, we took a decision to implement programs that will augment the network connectivity so as to make our ICT rollout effective for teaching and learning, even in poor communities across the province. We have therefore identified 1,000 rural schools in different communities in the province that will be connected to the network using satellite connectivity. When we broadcasted virtual classes last year, our experience taught us that many were left behind, and mainly because of the poor network connectivity in their communities. Therefore, the decision is premised from knowing the lost time, teaching time cannot be recovered easily. Therefore, the department should move with speed in resolving some of the challenges hindering success of narrowing the gap so that our curriculum plan reaches all learners everywhere in the province using the infrastructure on the ICT and as well the connectivity that we're talking about. Our view on the development continues to be that of rolling out broadcasting centers throughout the province, which is done as another step in ensuring that where there are gaps in curriculum preparation and delivery, the Eastern Cape Department of Education uses ICT as another means to assist in its development and help minimize the digital divide, especially in rural schools. The implementation of the policy on screening, identification, assessment, and support in all public ordinary schools across the province will be to ensure that even persons with disability can access inclusive education of quality on free primary and secondary schools on an equal basis with others in the communities in which they live, as that remains a key policy priority for the department. It is our own view that we can continue to plan in an exclusive manner if we do believe that our learners with disabilities are supposed to be living in an inclusive society. As we understand that language transformation is a priority for this province, we also acknowledge that language is not everything in education. But without language, everything is nothing also in education. The incremental introduction of the African languages ensures that all schools that do not offer indigenous African languages do so from grade R upwards. Sustaining the gains of the mother tongue bilingual education program from grade 4 to 7 is another key priority in the education sector in an endeavor to increase the access on mathematics and science for the vast number of the African language learners. The two departments are preparing a system of ECD function to move the ECD function from the Department of Social Development and Basic Education. As you know that we have been given that particular mandate of taking the ECD sector outside of the social development into education this year. It is then critical to note that at the center of this function shift process, it provides an opportunity for the improvement of the development of children and the quality of the ECD in order to provide the best support to children from an early childhood development. These two departments, Department of Social Development and Department of Education, are working closely to ensure a smooth transition, and meetings are convened regularly to ensure that all systems are in place for the realization of the envisaged challenge in the ECD centers. On the procurement of the PPEs for 2021, the existence of COVID-19 has made us to understand that there are decisions that must be taken instantly for the purpose of saving the lives and as well saving the academic year, respectively. In January 2021, the department started to implement a decentralized approach on the procurement of personal protective equipment for our schools in the first quarter. As schools opened on the 15th of February 2021, as per the instruction of the department, schools has to use their funds to augment the shortage of the PPEs, which was procured sometime last year. In them procuring their own PPEs, we appreciate the work done by the district offices in ensuring the compliance with the supply chain management policies and regulations as observed. We would like to also thank all principals, SGPs, and all our staff in our schools for responding to that call and made to ensure that enough PPEs were provided for our schools in the first quarter. The department is now in the process of procuring the PPEs for the second quarter and the rest of the year. This should be a top-up on what was already procured in the first quarter, noting that all material has to be procured, not all material has to be procured from scratch, e.g. the clothes, masks, which are reusable. These are all endeavors by the department to ensure that all learners, teachers, and non-teaching staff are provided with the PPEs to reduce the spread of the virus in our institutions of learning. But most importantly is to ensure that teaching and learning takes place whilst we save lives during this COVID-19 environment. As the 2021-2022 financial year has started, the process of providing PPEs to schools is on the final stage now, and it will be finalized quite very soon by the Department of Education on behalf of all schools in the province this time around. As we all understand the dire effects of the COVID-19 in the lives of our own people, as the department we can confirm that last year we managed to create jobs in the province for 262 SMEs who were appointed to supply PPEs across all schools in the province. This milestone has given an impetus to many SMEs in our province, and we have contributed immensely in the local development strategy policy that we have both as a provincial government and as well as local governments within our space in the province. In the same view, we are happy and delighted that whilst this procurement of PPE created a lot of critique in the public, the localization model that we have as a province has been praised by the Auditor General, and we are counted as one of the provinces in the country that use the public purse with dignity, and we are amongst the cheapest in terms of the prices in PPE in the country. And I think I would invite the media houses to request that report of the AG on this particular matter. Precisely because procurement of PPEs in this country has been a sore spot, Program Director. And procurement of PPEs has been one of the nerve centers, if you want, in terms of the presidency in this country. Hence, the president has actually made a declaration of the SIU to visit all provinces so that we can get a report on the SIU's perspective on the procurement of the PPEs. And I'm proud to say we don't have, acting SG, a finding on the PPEs as a province. And I think we must thank all those parties that have been in that space, participating on the space, and ensuring that there is due diligence on the public press as a provincial government so that we don't taint the image and the integrity of the provincial government on matters of procurement, in particular on the PPEs, especially that it has been an issue in the entire country with lots of investigations that are currently happening and lots of potential arrests in other provinces on the matters of PPEs. And I'm happy to report to the people of this province that we don't have an incident wherein our system has been compromised on this PPE. On the education implementation of initiative young people, as indicated before, the employment of EAs and STs in our schools help us as an endeavor to mitigate the effects of COVID-19 pandemic equally. The employment of these young people in our schools address a lot of socio-economic challenges in our province, and we remain the only sector that managed to create a large scale of huge number of employment opportunities amidst the pandemic. This led us to be nominated by the Department of Public Services and Administration as a winner in the category of youth employment in the provincial space by the Provincial Public Services Award, through the Provincial Public Services Award. And I think I must again explain that I have never seen, acting SG, a situation where government appointed 55,803 people in a space of 3 months successfully. Because 55,803 people is the entire department, by the way, figuratively. There are government departments that have got less than 55,000 people as an entire department. But we managed to employ these young people through the EAs and SSTs, through the Presidential Youth Initiative, which has been granted to us by the presidency in this country. And I'm proud to report as well that as a department we were allocated 55,803 posts with a total budget of 1,190 billion. That is 1,190 million. So, but equally, the figure is not that much important. What is important are the systems that we have been able to put in place so that we don't use the money of the public in a manner that is not good enough. So we have been able to put the project as initially planned at the end of March, and however, we did requested an extension from the presidency, and we were granted an extension from the 30th of March to the 30th of April. And again, that is as a result of the credibility of the system through the PESAL system that we utilize. That made us to be able to extend as a province the contract of the EAs from March to the 30th of April. There are current discussions that are happening as well, as I'm speaking with the presidency, whether those contracts can be extended. Because from where I am seated, acting SG, is that the EAs and SSTs program has augmented the government's program of EPWP in villages. Wonke umuntu busy ngophaya emakhaya, akho umuntu ungenanto okwenza pha, because of this particular program. And I can tell you, if we can stop this program, we'll go back to where we were before. But the challenge is that government might not have money to sustain that program, but the nature, the character, the zeal that has been demonstrated by the young people on this particular program has made a great deal in the sector in terms of stabilizing it from an administrative process, logistic process in the institutions of learning. But equally and outmostly, the intervention on the triple crisis that the country is confronted with: unemployment, inequality, and poverty. So that's why in City, yes, of course, this is a program in education, but it has been able to respond across all sectors within the society. Hence, I'm saying it will be critical for the country to check and balance whether it is not wiser to extend this particular program so that we can sustain the importance of the young people as part of the contingency in responding to the second economies in our villages that we have. The first phase of the initiative has been earmarked and opened our eyes such that our schools in future properly and achieved its intended objectives. And it is confirmed that it does not only rely on the teaching of teaching staff, but also on the non-teaching staff. As a sector led by the Minister, Umamu Enji, we will continue to engage the presidents on this particular matter to either extend this program or our systems, to put our systems in place for positive outcomes in education. It is in our own plans that the second phase of this particular program, we must also focus on building skills of the youth that we have employed so that they can use them even after they have exited the initiative. That's the argument that is currently in the sector. We must not just give people money, but equally build skills and capacity so that when they exit the system through this initiative, they are employable in other sectors. Create a skilled young citizenry in the country and also in the province in particular. We have already started that as a sector. There are those ones that are going to graduate in a space of 3 months to come, acting SG, the GS, the general assistants. Inasmuch they are employed by the department as general assistants, but they are as well undergoing a process of reskilling so that we can be able to make them ready for other challenges that we'll be confronted with. As the department, we have learned many lessons in this particular program, and we have committed ourselves into improving on many areas, especially on payment. We are also proud. We have also proud ourselves of being amongst the provinces that chose to use the credible parcel system, which in event today continues to bear positive fruits for us in terms of the managing of the public funds. There was a serious debate, Chair, whether the parcel system must be used or we must take the money to schools. The advantage of taking the money to schools was that you were going to pay people within the time that you want to pay them. and also get closer with the people that are beneficiaries. But the weakest point and link on that one is that you were not going to be able to account for each and every cent of the public purse. Because you can't allow R1 billion gone to schools and the payouts are done through envelopes. This is a public purse. You can't allow a situation where people are getting money through brown envelopes. Principals that get money in the banks and then pay people through cash without an accountability on the public purse. So the issue of the PESAL system was trying to mitigate such kind of challenges. And therefore, we were able to account for the money. Hence, we have been able to be granted an extension. In terms of the grade 12, we have introduced an autumn camp classes. Since Monday, last week, they are closing in the province on this coming Sunday. We are quite very busy on this one in the province on two reasons. If you look to the capacity of the learners we have now in grade 12, you will remember that they are the ones that are coming from grade 11 with the differentiated schooling system. In essence, it means they've got content gaps. So they need an intensive curriculum recovery plan for them to meet the required standard for grade 12. And therefore, our districts have been able to customarize the catch-up programs for grade 12 using our teachers who continued to brave themselves during the COVID-19 and to ensure that these learners are taught successfully. As the department will continue to work with GEN consultants in 8 districts, being Alfred Nzo East, Amatole West, OR Tambo Coastal, Krisani West, Alfred Nzo West, BCM and Jogabi. These districts are chosen based on their peculiar academic challenges. These camps in the province started on the 26th of April, and they are attended by 58,000 learners across all 8 districts. These camps mostly focus on mathematics, accounting, and physical sciences, being taught every day, whilst other subjects are taught interchangeable. We are as well working with Maths, Science Infinity in Nelson Mandela, Alfred Nzo, OR Tambo Coastal, Krisani East, Alfred Nzo East and West, and OR Tambo Inland. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the leadership of the department to continue to provide leadership. Ever since the day we lost our own SG, may his soul rest in peace. We'll continue to work as a team in education, and we will continue to give guidance and support to our districts instantly, and we will continue to ensure that the finalization of the SGP elections that is currently underway, as their role at schools will be to continue with the work that the SG and the communities has already played in the province. Even today, we are convinced that the Eastern Cape can be better, and education remains a social matter. Lastly, Program Director, we also want to thank the members of the media who are presently here and who can confirm that we are better people because of you having supported us in writing articles, critiquing us, giving us lessons, and such that we learn out of your own insight on issues. And together we have been able to put the province into a better pedestal now. Without this component of media houses, I bet my last cent Program Director wouldn't be where we are. Communication is a two-way traffic kind of an arrangement. You get to learn from the critiques that they have. They get to learn from us giving clarity on certain issues, but in the process, together, we have moved the province a bit forward. Hence, I'm saying, let me take this opportunity to thank them and call all of them to make sure that from today onwards, we work together in ensuring that we change the manner by which we are perceived as a provincial government in general and education in particular. The country is undergoing a serious litmus test, SG. The country is undergoing a serious litmus test on bullying in schools. That's not a provincial phenomenon, but generally the country is undergoing a serious litmus test on bullying in schools. And my sense is that there is a need of a further engagement with all the parties with direct and indirect interest in education, so that we can tighten up regulations that we use, repeal some of the laws, in particular if they are a threat in terms of social stability, but equally expose some of the underlying social phenomena that manifest themselves in education, but originally not coming from here. Last week I was in Bofol. One amongst the issues that I raised there, which I want to raise here again, is that you are not going to get safe schools in unsafe communities. School is a mirror of a society. If you have got thugs in society, expect bullying in schools. If you have got drug lords in the communities, expect that in schools. So if you have got elderly people that do not respect their own value system, just do things in front of kids, expect bullying in schools. So there is a need of us finding an everlasting solution on how to stabilize generally the society. But my take for you now is to say, acting SG, how do we deal with the family structure first? Are our families stable? Are our families stable? Before we talk about society and schools, are our families stable? That's one. The second aspect, as I'm landing, is that COVID-19 has actually given us lessons that government can operate at home. That Mtima government can operate at home. So there is no need of all of us coming to work daily for the work of government to happen. Because COVID has actually told us a lesson that we can do the work of government at home. Here is a policy issue that I am raising with you. If government can work at home and succeed, what will be your reason not to appoint disabled people and work at home? If us as normal people without disabilities, because we are at 60 years and above, we can work at home and still deliver the output that was expected, what will be the excuse of government in not appointing disabled people and work at home and still deliver the outcomes? It goes back now on the threshold question. Are we scientifically correct by putting 5% as a threshold for disabled people as part of the employment equity? COVID has actually exposed us on that angle. So I'm then saying it's a discussion that all of us will have to ensue, general as a province, not as an education, but general as a province, but equally as a country, whether there is no need of an alignment in terms of policies and ensure that government can get what it wants without constraining the infrastructure and the systems that we have. Otherwise, thank you for the opportunity. Program Director.
Thank you very much, Mr. MEC. Colleagues, now is that critical time in our program of questions and answers, clarity seeking questions, and the provision of answers by the MEC and the acting HOD. Colleagues, I will request then therefore that for those that are going to be posing questions, you raise your hand, you tell us which institution are you from, then you pose your question. We'll have 2 rounds. We'll determine whether we can continue or not, but we'll have 2 rounds. We'll go for the first round, and then after the first round, we'll allow the MEC and the SG to reflect and or to respond. After that, we'll allow then again the second round. Maybe there'll be follow-up questions so that we are able to close the session properly with all angles being reflected on. On that note, I'll also allow in fact, there's going to be 2. Well, you are going to ask questions, first and second round, and then there are those that are connected online. Ms. Boltela will read their questions for us, and then the leadership of the department will respond to that. On that note, colleagues, can we have the clarity seeking questions? Let's welcome the SABC who just arrived. Thanks for arriving, colleagues. Are there any clarity seeking questions? Going once. Madiba? Shoot.
My name is Corporal Punishment from the Daily Dispatch. I just want the MEC to just explain. Thank you. MEC, can you just maybe go a little bit deeper into the issue of the 1,000 rural schools that will be connected? I just want to know how they were chosen, whether there was a special criteria for that. And I just want to find out because, I mean, we've got the other side of the Kai River where we mostly the infrastructure is a little bit better compared to the eastern side. So I want to find where are those schools based, the majority of them. And there was a story that I saw in our publication about the 55,000 tablets that were given last year that the department was battling to get back now because the former grade 12s were refusing to give them back. So I want to find out how is it going to work. We are still planning to connect these 1,000 schools, but are there any special plans to make sure that once they finish their schooling, then we'll get back those gadgets? And what's going to happen with the 55,000 that we are still battling to get back?
Going once, going twice, Kyopo, Babsi, Fezi, Fufu.
Thank you very much. My name is Fundiswa Mhlekude. MEC, my question, although I was not here when you were speaking earlier, maybe you have mentioned it, the issue of sanitations at school. So many people, schools, especially in the OR Tambo area, are facing a huge backlog in terms of sanitation, water and sanitation, in fact. Especially at this time of COVID-19, they are still struggling. Are there any plans by the department or from the department to improve the quality of those schools? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Forgive my voice. My name is Pamela Shaza from ePepalam newspaper. My question to the MEC, he just mentioned that we're facing a problem of bullyism at schools. So now, I'm interested in knowing that, is there a possibility that inside the schools, we have at least a social worker, at least one social worker who is well-trained, who can identify the behavior of the kids before it comes out of hand? Yeah? And offers uncedo to those kids who are from the dysfunctional families. because I'm relating to the case of Lufuno. It is said that Lufuno went to her teachers and reported the case before she committed suicide. So they did not know that that was a case that needed attention of social workers. So I hope the MEC gets my question. Is there a possibility that we can have social workers inside the schools?
All right. The expansion of the what is it? Psychosocial support to our schools, or ESSS. Colleagues, can we allow both the MEC and the head of department to reflect on those? Mr. MEC will start, or the HOD will start, then the MEC. Colleagues will allow the second round. If there is none, we'll allow Mbokala to read those. Thank you very much. Mr. SG, over to you.
Thank you. Probably let me start with the questions from the Daily Dispatch, Mateo, on the issue of 1,000 schools. We have gone on a satellite connectivity. It's not optic fiber, it's satellite that we have chosen, the 1,000 schools. It's part of the rollout program of the department, where we are connecting schools to be able to receive lesson broadcasts from where they are, as well as access information that will enable many of our schools to access through a number of platforms that we have created. We have created a website in the Department of Education that has been able to stock quite a number of resources where they can just get into the website and get that information. We also have a telematics program through University of Stellenbosch, where we broadcast lessons and also avail these lessons to be available whenever. So this connectivity that we're talking about is the ability of these schools to be able to. So the spread is throughout the province. It's not your urban. What we could do, probably, I could ask Mamubotela to get hold of IT guys to give us names of the schools and where they are located, all 1,000 of them. We can do that before we leave in here. The tablets. We were not giving tablets to children. We're giving tablets to schools. And we're giving tablets to schools to provide for learners who are doing grade 12. So when they finish grade 12, they leave the tablets behind. And that's where I should think the biggest mishap was between schools and learners. Many schools failed to recoup when they wrote the last paper. We gave a memo and a guideline to all our schools how to deal with it. The morality of it, which was also a bit of a political quagmire, is to hold their results because they've not returned the tablets. There was a fight, and everybody was arguing there is no reason to hold their results when they've not returned the tablets. And other people were beginning to raise an issue about these tablets are so expensive for parents to pay back this money and all of this. So what we have then done is to partner with SAPS, South African Police, to recoup them. So any learner who's keeping a tablet today is out of law and is in conflict with law. So we've tried to make it very clear that if we recoup that tablet using extraordinary mechanisms, it actually means then you are criminally liable for those. So we've issued out a memo again to request them to return those tablets back to the department. They are meant to assist the grade 12 class of 2021, as they were targeting 20. So it's a 3-year program. As you know, the lifespan of any gadget can never be in excess of 3 years. So we were just targeting that over a period of 3 years, we would be able to almost assist more than 250,000 learners over that period to access information using a tablet. So that was the bigger plan. So many of them are now giving us a problem to bring them back. Sanitation in schools. Colleagues, I should think nationally, the matter has been reported to be a crisis, and it's a crisis point. And as a result of that, the minister, together with the MEC, they then agreed on a program called SAFE, which is a sanitation program that is focusing on schools with sanitation issues. Then that adds to the problem of infrastructure related to toilets, sanitation, water in schools. And this SAFE program, I will avail figures in terms of how many schools are we targeting this year for the SAFE program. I did ask our infrastructure guys to join us in this meeting, but they could not join us because I wanted a technical backup on that information. So, but we can avail that information in terms of the number of schools and where these schools are, just to improve sanitation. Social worker per school, colleagues, it's a program that we started in 2016. But in 2016, we were focusing on schools that were experiencing a lot of social challenges. You had issues of abuse, you have issues of teenage pregnancies, you have a whole range. So we also lined up with the poor of the poorest wards in the province, and we came up with 940 schools where we attached a social worker. And what we've realized now is the question MEC was raising. Is it possible to think that all children in our schools are coming from a normal family background? They don't. Many of our children are coming from single families. As a result of that, lots of social challenges are part and parcel of this process. So as a result of that, we were able to get to part of the EPWP program as well as this presidential program to get a lot of social workers attached to our schools. We then want to see how we sustain this over time. So that's what we're working on now. Thank you, Mr.
No, thanks, Program Director. I think the acting SG has actually responded to a number of issues quite very well. I just want to augment him on the issue relating to the social cohesion in the context of the bullyism in schools. I have been in touch with some of the organizations that have got direct interest in the development of the kids that we are nurturing as a sector. And part of such people is Tatu Machola, Kakula Projects. And we were in agreement, acting SG, as I was saying during the course of the week, that probably we needed to have a strategic planning session as a direct response to this issue of bullyism in schools, because it is becoming rife in the country now. For me, it's not just about whether or not teachers are cognizant of the law or learners are a bit I don't want to use that concept that they use in Facebook, but there is something that needed to be panel beated a bit. Look, we are in agreement that with the leadership of the department that before the shutdown of this quarter, in fact, possible by next month, there must be a sort of a seminar or an indaba on this particular matter. Bring in the civil organizations on board. Bring in, says, the body that governs teachers, so that SACE can begin to pick up whether from the regulations we have as a body, what are the gaps? What are the gaps from SACE's point of view? Bring in the South African Human Rights Commission. Bring in the South African Human Rights Commission on that particular meeting. What is your interpretation of the current environment as South African Human Rights Commission if we have got a principal that have taken a kid into a toilet and then that principal negotiated with the parent, and therefore you as Justice Department has given a bail to the principal, and therefore the department is stranded in between? What then becomes the attitude of the Human Rights Commission in that particular instance? So I'm saying there are so many parties that must up the game here. Before you arrive in school, what is the interpretation of the current environment, policy environment in the country as South African Human Rights Commission? As a rural province, we have got traditional houses. All of us are coming from villages here with traditional kings and kingdoms. What then becomes their role in this particular instance? Again, you have got the CR Rights Commission for Kids. What is it? What is it that they pick up that must be dealt with? But equally, from a judicial point of view, what should be the attitude of the judicial system on matters relating to kids and the institutions of learning? What are the implications of a raped kid from a school, and then the culprit gets a bail and then come back into the village where that kid is undergoing a school? So there is a lot of an effort that must be dealt with, but equally, what then becomes the Department of Social Development also's role in capping some of those issues. So I'm saying, what has just transpired now is inviting an integrated kind of a planning across all departments, sectors, and begins to pave the way on how to respond to some of those matters. Lastly, for me, Chair, on this connectivity, we learned that when we were in January in Jogabi, SG, we could see that there are villages that do not have network. And if villages do not have network, automatically the school is not going to have the network. And if villages do not have network, it means any effort on education, on digital learning, is a futile exercise. So 2 options you have now is to close the gap that is there of another department, because remember, it's not our mandate to connect communities, not to connect schools for that matter. That's not our mandate. But precisely because you have got a particular interest as an education, because the world now is migrating to digital education. So you are not going to wait for Department of Communications, Science and Technologies here for you to achieve your own objectives. So you needed to up the game and augment such kind of. So we are going to prioritize rural schools and semi-urban schools so that we can have a sample of them across the province, so that the devices that we have bought can be optimally utilized, but also improve the quality of the results that we would want to get into the province. On the issues relating to sanitation and water, SG has actually alluded to them. Safe to say, we have started a program of handing over now completed projects of schools that have been built in the province, about 30 of them. We have handed over 8 now. We should be finishing that program by July, August, of handing all those completed projects across the province into all communities. But at the center of that, for me, SG, is on how the people of the province accept that there is a need of restructuring the education in the province. You will forever have a problem of sanitation and water if you have got small unviable schools in the province. Precisely because the provisioning policy and resourcing, at the heartbeat of it is a learner. And once you don't have learners in any institution of learning, you are going to have a problem and a gap. So that's why I'm then saying we are coming closer to that one, but the landscape and mapping of schools as a policy that we have just developed now is going to assist us so that we have got more bigger schools, fewer in number, but bigger in terms of capacity, and consolidated resources that gives us the output that we would want to get. Thanks, Program Director.
Yes. All those, okay. Colleagues, you don't have any, you've got additions? Madiba, you've got an addition. Is there anybody else who wants to, and Ms. Mhlekude, please? You start Madiba and then Ms. Mhlekude, then the MEC will wrap it up at the SU. Thank you.
That in the past years, there was talk of about 300 unviable schools that were identified in the province. I'm not sure whether they were all closed down or messed. I just want to find out what happened to that process. How many of those unviable schools has the department been able to merge or close down, if I'm using the right words? And secondly, I just wanted, I know that the Department of Basic Education is spearheading this ACID program, but I just wanted to find out, is there a deadline for the eradication of mud schools in the Eastern Cape? Is there a deadline that has been set down? And the last one, wait. No, I think those were the two questions that I wanted to check. Oh, the issue of the tablets, how much this time have you budgeted?
Thank you.
For that, for those 1,000 rural schools? Those are the three questions.
Thank you, Dispatch. Let's go to SABC.
Thank you. I want to ask about the issue of corporal punishment that is still administered at some of schools in the Eastern Cape. I got a case that I received from one of the schools, I'm not sure if Ekupumleni in Gongce, and another one in Lady Frey. What about corporal punishment? Is it still allowed at schools? Because we've been hearing a lot of complaints from even parents and learners, especially some are on social media. Thank you very much.
Thanks, SABC. Colleagues, UCR and Independent News Online?
Yes, I wanted to know the issue of inspection, especially in disability schools. And I want to know, is there any enough that is inspection there? Because sometimes there is a kid that is in Durbanek where a young guy that is affected by the heat and he died. But I want to know, another thing is the language. In 2017, or if I'm not mistaken, or there was a launch for about 12th official language, that is the sign language. But I don't know whether where is it now? That is the sign language in the schools, as you indicated. Thanks.
Thank you very much, UCR. Can we please go to Mr. Isaacs?
Manbulisanam, MEC. Just ukolega kulambuzo kafundiswa about the corporal punishment. I know particularly up in Bogwasthoza there was a case of a learner who posted on Facebook. The matter, to my knowledge, the district went to the school to investigate. I think there was a teacher who was pointed out, but I don't know what process followed since then and what is the latest with that particular case. Secondly, this is directly to you, MEC. You've always identified societal problems and their impact in school and schooling. And one of the things, I think you've mentioned it and I've also observed it, more especially in public, what do you call it, public schools. The lack of participation of parents. It looks like the parents have fully outsourced the learning of their children to the schooling system. They themselves are not involved. If, like me, you have a child who is at private school or the former model schools, you have no choice not to be involved because every day you have work that the school has sent that keeps you checking and able to gauge where your child's schooling is involved. And I just want you to speak on these matters of what seems to be the problem of parents not entirely involved, because maybe it would be a wrong assumption that this incident of bullying or kids who end up bullying are because their parents are not in touch with their activities, schooling and after schooling activities. To that extent, now they ended up expressing themselves in these other ways of being bullied to others and so on.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you please lend me the mic? Tando, please pass the mic to Bolkola. There's another question there. Dan. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So it's sorted, that question. Is it sorted? Okay. Oh, okay. Can we give the MEC the SG to quickly wrap it up, and then the MEC will close will give us the closing remark before we adjourn the session, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. SG.
Thank you, Mr. Mtima. Colleagues, on the disabled people, just to say that we have picked up that the number of kids in special schools that reach matric is lower compared to other provinces. And we have then decided to embark on a very strong program that will look at progression and performance by children in special schools so that we can up the numbers. So it's one of those programs that have become our pillar for the next 4 years. So if you look at our strat plan for the next 4 years, we have inclusion as one of the pillars. So we are giving special attention to disability. Language policy. Colleagues, our responsibility is basic education, and this is where we have scope and capacity to legislate as a department. We don't have, we don't have a mandate to deal with higher education. So we are really focusing on basic education, that is grade R to grade 12. That's where our policy mandate ends. Then on the rationalization of schools, bigger schools. Colleagues, it's a misfortune of a good policy that has turned, a bit difficult in terms of implementation. If you look at the schooling structure of the Eastern Cape, we have schools at very low numbers, not by choice, but because of the history of this province, especially where there is no development. Our parents were laborers, and parents opened up schools just to make sure that their children are able to go to school. After 1994, we then defined a school by numbers. So if you have in excess of 130, you have a school. But if you have less, you have a small school. So what we have to manage is to manage between the funding model that we had and the schooling structure that we had. So we then agreed on almost 2,000 schools in the province had to be rationalized to make sure that we have bigger schools. But in reality, it doesn't work like that. You have communities where there are children below the ages of 10 who cannot travel in excess of 5 kilometers will need scholar transport. Some of them, by the mere tenderness of their age, cannot get into a scholar transport by 7 o'clock. So we have to manage rationalization in their context. Where they have to be taught in their locality, we have to make sure that we stay with a small school. We don't force it. But where they can be provided with scholar transport, there is no other school in a radius of 5 kilometers, we provide them with scholar transport. So then 3 years, that is 2017, we had agreed that, look, this is not only about closing small schools, but it's about also restructuring the schooling system in the province. Hence, we then agreed on a geospatial management of the project. What do I mean by that? In each and every circuit, we looked at how many schools we have and what is the proximity between those schools and what is the proximity between the school and where they come from. And then we had agreed on bigger schools. As a result of that, we then had to look at how do we use the infrastructure grant to fund that program. Because when you build, you can't just go into a location because the school or Satuengenkosi, you make a very big school, only to find that abandoned by 50, you know. And we are Jonga, since 1994, we have built white elephants, wherein we came into localities and everybody was boasting, this was the first school Kulelali, but abandoned by 50. The minister was very angry the other day where she had to open a school, a Mount Frere, some in Mount Frere, only to find abandoned by 80. And she was calling us, hey man, how do you do this? You know. So when we then agreed on the spatial planning framework, we then agreed that, look, let's look at numbers as well. If you need to build a hostel, build a hostel. If you need to transport them using scholar transport, do that. So this is our plan going forward. We look at rationalization in that sense. If you have a very small community with children below the ages of 10, 9, 8, you don't have to move them. You can stay with that. But those must be your minimal number of schools that you can afford. And what you have to do then is to make sure that you provide teachers more than you are supposed to. You are above the norm the minute you do that. So government works in terms of norms and standards, so they don't just work based on your need. So they define a class to be a class of 40 children is what government funds. But in most cases, you find a class of 10 children. Then we need to find a juggle around that because it's about resources. When we get back to Treasury is beating us very hard to say, colleagues, look, you have 3,000 teachers additional to the establishment. They are not necessarily additional. The point of the matter is that they don't meet your norm. When they don't meet your norm, it actually means that you have very small schools that cannot be moved by virtue of their locality. You have to maintain them, you have to stay with them. So with this program of bigger and better schools, this is where we're trying to manage the numbers game. So you have schools in excess of 700 that closed on their own. There are no kids, there is nothing. So those who are gazetting, after gazetting, we hand them back to Public Works. It's their property, it's not our property. So they decide what to do with those. ACIDI program, colleagues, ACIDI was given a time frame as a project. If time comes, or MEC, when they sit at CM, they decide what else must happen. Probably MEC will talk to that in terms of time frames. So I would not be able to say ACIDI is coming to an end once that time frame arrives. No, we can't, you know. So there has to be a political decision. Infrastructure backlogs are big, and they're still there. So we need to deal with that. I should think those are the main issues. MEC will deal with corporal punishment and all of that because they are all legal issues. Disability, MEC will deal with that. Sign language, you will deal with those. Those are policy matters. Thank you, MEC.
No, thanks. Let me start from where he has just landed. One on the language policy. Guys, we have been mandated by calls by societies generally that the country is depleted on this particular question. There are two extreme discussions that are happening in terms of the language transformation in the country. One is, how do you introduce the sign language as part of the mainstream in the education sector in the country? And how do you then ensure that sign language becomes part of the development of the humankind, as you will pick up some of the challenges that sign language absence will manifest itself. For example, let me take an example for you. Let me just take a simple example for you. Apha eMthatha, Mr. Mtim, kune case ka principal wase Efata who was alleged wabulawa ngabantwana about 7 years back. Do you know that that case have not yet started? Why? Because of the language issue. Because of the language issue, because when they come into court, you must be sure that what I am saying is what I'm saying. And now, the absence of the sign language interpretation generally in the country has hit hard on that question, on that case. Therefore, I am then saying, it then becomes critical for the country in general. How do you then bring back sign language as part of the curriculum and as part of the discussion for the development of the kids? Not just for education. Because EOS manifest a problem, your absence, your sign language, a court. Not up. EOS manifest a court. In case I call it because I come to kwazi yokuti, then don't eat a injal. Ubandi a chol, I come to kwazi ukreator, Glenman sitting there chol. So I'm saying it's a matter that I think generally there is a need of an ongoing discussion across all sectors. How do we deal with it? But the second aspect on the language transformation agenda is that all of us must answer one question, Botel. Whose nation are we? And building this nation for who? Can you build the nation outside of its own cultural evolution and language thereof? Let's get into that discussion. Whose nation are we? And whose nation are you building, by the way? Can you build a nation of Africans outside of its own cultural evolution and the language thereof? Can you boldly say so? So that's why, as Eastern Cape, we from 2012, we bring in this discussion in the country. From 2012, the one that actually given us a grade 12 trial examinations papers to be written in the African language. Because for us, this is a very serious issue. This is a very serious issue. It's not just about affluence. It's about identity. It's not just about affluence, it's about identity. And we've observed, made a research as a province that, by the way, developed nations worldwide are nations that are using their own original language in education. For example, at the end of the year, we're going to take grade 12s who are doing maths and science and to go to Cuba to do medicine there. It's not so. We've got a program with Cubans on maths and science. The hidden truth is that in that program, when they arrive there, they must first do Spanish. Before they do medicine, they must first do Spanish. Which begins to tell you that they are not prepared to compromise who they are. They are not prepared to compromise who they are. So thina funeka ke siyongena pha kubo ke ngothina. Thina sibe phakathi koba sithi noba ngabo. Sibe in between. Sibe ikhombo. So I'm saying, for me, it's not just about affluence, It's not about passing metric, but it's about identity. It's about identity, and it's about answering the question that is fundamental about the nation building itself. Around the corporal punishment, we are quite very clear on this one because it's a policy-related matter. Corporal punishment is not part of the DNA of this government. Let me just be precise on that. We don't have corporal punishment in the DNA of government. That's why I said we need to call all these institutions that are a custodian of this policy. Your SACE in the context of education, your CRL in the context of educators, your Human Rights Commission in the context of general, people that are victimized and whatever, your Department of Justice, your SAPS, so that we can find each other. Yintoni lesingayenzi right ibangela ezingxaki sikuzo ngoku. Yintoni le singayenzi right, so that we can be able to move beyond the appearance into the occurrence. So that we can move beyond the appearance, get deeper. Yes, these are legislations, these are policies. But kutheni ngeli xesha sezikhona ezi policies but you continue to have this problem? Yintoni lingenzeki right up? Ingabe ezi policies ne-gaps? Okanye we have assumed that the South African society at a particular stage, it will have been at this level of understanding policies. Because ngakhona naleyo into kuthi kanti ii-policies zethu zibheyiswe kwi-assumptions. Uba at a particular development of the society will be at this level, and therefore these policies are going to assist us. So we needed a discussion on that one. Hence I'm saying in a space of 30 days or so, through the office of the SG, we'll convene this platform to deal decisively with the social incoherence that manifests in schools, but originally coming from families and some of the institutions within the society in general. Because thina ubufuna uyibona ingxaki ekhoyo apha ekuhlaleni iza kwa-education. Ubufuna ubona ingxaki ekhoyo ekuhlaleni iza apha i-education iza kubonisa. Uza kubonisa into yokubana apha kugcwele izidlwengu apha kule ndawo. Uza kubonisa i-education. Iyakubonisa i-education into yobana akukho mntu ukwazi uziphatha apha. That's why apha esikolweni kugcwele abantwana abapregnant. Nibaleke ke ngonina nifuna uzobala abantwana abapregnant apha esikolweni. Kanti ingxaki ayikho lapha, ipha kulaa mzi ungayaziyo uba kunexesha longena egeyithini novalwa kwegeythi apha. Because as an adult awukwazi ulala ungamazi umntana wakho buphi. Uzubuye ngomso xa kuthiwa upregnant uthi awuyazi uba ube pregnant xa bekuthini. So it can't work like that. So there is a need of going back to the value systems of the society that can deal with some of the threats that we have in the context of the social incoherence that we have. Ndiyafuna nje ukuvala ngelithi Mtima. Kule nto yolwakhiwo lezikolo, I think there is something that generally we have not mastered kulaa nto. In fact, not ulwakhiwo lezikolo, but generally in terms of human settlement, schools included on that, clinics included on that, hence ndisebenzisa le concept ibroad ye-human settlement. Umzekelo, what is your geospatial planning on education that informs you to build a school here? Ingaba i-social trend patterns zale village zikuxelela uba in the next coming 20 years bazawube bengapha abantu balapha? Have you done that study? Ithini i-health profile yale community zokwakha kuyo isikolo? So that you don't build a school of 50 million now, come after 2 years, kunideka isikolo se-300 million. Because you have not studied scientifically uba le migration pattern yenzekayo apha might need a bit of this kind of a school. And therefore, from once you build a school that can sustain you for the next coming 10 years, not now. Yabona ngoyingxaki esabanayo. There is a migration from rural areas to urban areas. And that migration results to empty schools in rural areas. Hence uzoba nelento uthi wena uyibizayo uyitsibelayo uthi zi-unviable schools. I-unviable school is an end product of population migration. Why? Because of us not prioritizing rural development. Let's be naked here. What you see is just an output of a negligence of rural development. As I'm speaking here, SG, kukhona umuntu okhwela ibhasi apha ka-DMJ okanye kaMavumiso Bheke eKapa. Oyohlala eside C emaTyotyombe ushiya u-8 rooms apha kowabo elalini. Ukhetha uyohlala iTyotyombe eKapa kunohlala ku-8 rooms akwabo. Why? Because we have got an orientation that development must be along the lines of cities. And therefore life is in cities, not in rural areas. Hence, ke ngoku uzaba ne-problem ye-population migration to all those hubs that are economic centers. Now, iziphumo ke zaloo nto iziphumo zaloo nto iza kuba kukuthini? Kukungabikho kwabantwana ezikolweni, because ebeke ndophangela eKapa ePepping kulaa fam yokwenza izihlangu. Andizukwazi ukondla iifamilies ezimbini kaloku. Ndizawuphela ndithatha abantwana bam ndiyohlala nabo eKapa because I can't afford to have 2 groceries per month. So this issue about kids not there and there is as a result of planning beyond education from a socio-economic point of view, which needed to be resolved by government, not by education in particular, but by government in general. Hence, ndikwenzela umzekelo ngale nto intoba uzofika umuntu edinga umsebenzi phe elalini. Udinga kwakho umsebenzi athathe ibhasi ahambe okanye athathe iteksi abheke eKapa. Axolele uyotshela emkhukhwini. Axolele uyotshela emkhukhwini kunohlala phe elalini. So it's a matter that I think we just needed to deal with it as part of the problems that we have. Lastly, Mr. Mtim, kulento yezizikolo le budget, I'm not certain about it, SG. Ndonqanubiza ifigure ngoku apha. I'm not certain about it, Mtima, in figuratively. But the approach here was that connect 1,000 schools in the province. But there is a new development, SG, mhlawumbi seyifikile apha kuwe ofisini ngoku, last week, on the very same question. I'm not sure how Omarias are going to respond to it as supply chain management. You have got a district that is migrating. Yes, Alfred's West, which needs this connection. Because it's going to a new infrastructure. So, above this 1,000 schools, funeka connect that district if many infrastructure enter. Again, here in Queenstown, the district director, when I was there last week on public participation, was reporting that they are migrating to a new offices. Again, they are going to need this connectivity. So that's why we were then saying this week to supply chain management, by next week, Friday, the procurement of this facility must have been concluded. Have been concluded so that at least between July and August, we've finished up anything that relates to this, so that schools and other people can benefit out of this initiative that we have created. Hence, I'm saying, It's no longer just about schools now. It's about functionality of the districts themselves. Because if you have moved a district to a new building, how are you going to process matters of the people from an HR point of view? Surely you are going to have a crisis. So hence I'm saying, by next week Friday, this matter will have been closed. By next week Friday. And I'm happy to announce that supply chain is up and running on this matter and is going for an advert next week Friday. It's going on for an advert next week Friday so that we close it quickly and stabilize the sector as much as we can. The parents' participation in our schools is a serious matter. You are spot on, JJ. We have outsourced our responsibilities. We have outsourced our responsibilities. That's why I was saying last year to the minister, part of the problem of the schooling system in the country is lack of parenthood. Majority of the kids are staying with grandmas and grandpas. Majority of the kids are child-headed families. And some of them are either coming from single families. So I'm saying this assumption that you are going to get what you want from them is not there. So we needed to panel beat certain things here and be able to ensure that at least we are able to respond to some of the matters. On our city, the minister this is a program of the president. We don't have control over it. But what I can simply say to it is that there is an ongoing discussion between us and the office of the minister and the president to continue with it. Precisely because we have not yet finished mud schools in the province. That's one. But there is one issue that Mtima we have not said to the public. Our city has built 200 schools in this country. Out of that 200 schools, Eastern Cape benefited 169. Out of 200 schools, Eastern Cape benefited 169. That does not suggest that there are no mud schools or inappropriate schools in other provinces. They are. But the massive nature of the mud schools in the former Transkei area has resulted into this. So hence I'm then saying we have benefited a lot as Eastern Cape government on the ACID project. What we just needed to do now is to institutionalize our approach, our planning, so that we don't build schools where we don't need them more and not build them where we are. I was a bit disappointed last time, Mtima, when Tepo reported to me that we have got 16,000 classrooms that are unutilized in the province, whilst you have got people protesting for building of schools at the same time. So this is as a result of the planning program and all that stuff. But I'm fine. We will take it up and see how best can we deal with it. Thanks, Mtim.
Colleagues, thank you very much. Siyasayitsala because funa bani xa nimngapha nimngeni iphethe yonke into. Masibambe mana colleagues ngelithi even kufuneka isetyenziswe okokuqala. Okwesibini nalapha phandle mhlawumbi uba kunezinye into efuna uzi-explaina Mr. Mabhongo sazi-explaina babazi uyawuthetha kunye nam sizi-explaina okanye noMadiba okanye noNantsika no-director but we can explain them. Mr. I'm not certain whether you are going to outside because the session is adjourned for now. Maybe there are going to be those that need direct quotes, maybe in Xhosa or English. Can you please avail yourself, Mr. MC? Oh, thank you, Mr. Madiba is handling it. So, colleagues, the session is officially adjourned. Those who need Xhosa interviews and what can talk to Mrs. Tokwe and Ms. Mboxela. Thank you very much. Mr. MC.